Yesterday, was it a day of shame, a day of renewal, or a bit of both?
A bit of both. What I had hoped yesterday was that, although it would be painful, because there were findings against the Labour Party for breaching equalities legislation that the Labour government brought in relation to anti-Semitism, and we had to accept that and apologise. I had hoped that we could draw a line in the stand and move forward. And I'd spoken to many Jewish community leaders and others, and they wanted that as well. They wanted the Labour Party to honestly accept the findings and what had happened, to make that apology, recognising the grief that had been caused, and show the determination to tackle anti-Semitism, which I've made a top priority, and move forward together. That, in the end, didn't happen according to plan because of the response of Jeremy Corbyn yesterday morning to the report.
What was it specifically that annoyed, upset, or triggered your action for what you heard from Mr Corbyn?
I was very clear in my response to the report that the Labour Party I lead will not tolerate anti-Semitism, nor will it tolerate the argument that there isn't really any anti-Semitism, it's all exaggerated or factional, because that's part of the problem. And on top of the grief that's already been caused, to respond to the report by saying, oh, well, it's exaggerated, it's just factional stuff, adds to that grief. And I made that very clear in my response. I had spoken to Jeremy Corbyn the night before the report, and there'll be further conversations with his team on the morning, yesterday morning. So Jeremy's team knew very well where I was going with this. No anti-Semitism, no denial or minimising, which is part of the problem. And therefore, when I saw Jeremy Corbyn's response, I was really disappointed in that response to these very serious findings from an independent body.
Do you hope to be able to welcome him back to the party, Sir Keir?
Well, the process was started yesterday by the General Secretary. That was difficult, Nick. I mean, these are difficult decisions, as you can imagine. That process must now be completed. I am not going to comment, because one of the things that the Commission said yesterday was that the leader of the Labour Party should not get involved in individual cases. That was part of the problem of the last few years. And I'm not going to get involved. It's been started by the General Secretary. It's got to run its course. But I was very clear about my approach, which is denying or minimising the problem is part of the problem.
But my question was, are you hopeful you'll welcome him back one day? I'm not asking you to adjudicate on which way it goes. Would you hope one day to have him back in the fold, Sir Keir?
Well, of course, I want to have this resolved, but I don't. The only reason I'm pushing back against your question is that either commenting on the substance, if you like, or what I think the result should be, is a problem. I mean, that's one of the things the Commission said is, for heaven's sake, leader of the Labour Party, stay out of that, because you might influence those who are making a decision. If I go on record saying this is what I want to see happen, then it might influence the outcome. So frustrating though it is, I shouldn't do that, and I'm not going to do that. The process has to take its course.
You are a lawyer, a very distinguished lawyer. Less than 12 months ago, you were telling me, and working flat out, that man should be Prime Minister. How can you justify that position now?
Well, Nick, Jeremy was twice elected leader of the Labour Party, had a clear mandate. I was the shadow Brexit secretary dealing with the Brexit negotiations. Obviously, issues of anti-Semitism came up in the shadow cabinet and outside, and I spoke up on those, and I wanted them mended. But looking at the report yesterday, we all have to accept the findings and accept responsibility for those findings. That's why it's among the reasons I apologised in clear terms yesterday.
Yes, but should you have done more when you were on the front bench working under Mr Corbyn? In hindsight, do you regret you didn't do more, Sir Keir?
Well, I challenged inside the shadow cabinet and outside. I thought it was important to have a voice inside and outside on that. Obviously, looking at the findings of yesterday, I have got to accept the responsibility that comes with those findings, and that's why I've apologised on behalf of the Labour Party for the findings in the report and the way that we've handled anti-Semitism. Since then, we've had the verdict of the British public in the general election. We've had the verdict of the Commission yesterday on anti-Semitism, and my job, therefore, is to show new leadership and to be absolutely committed to rooting out anti-Semitism, which is what I have said I will do, and I will see through on that, whatever difficult decisions that involves.
But just visiting one last time, personally, do you feel you should have done more?
I felt I did challenge at the time. I felt I challenged in the
So there's
Shadow
no more you
Cabinet.
could have done at the time?
Well, a number of us were challenging in the Shadow Cabinet. A number of us were challenging outside the Shadow Cabinet. We all need to reflect, of course, on that. In the end, whatever those challenges were, the findings yesterday suggest that they didn't achieve what we wanted them to achieve. And I do reflect on that. It is amongst the reasons that I made such a strong commitment to tackle anti-Semitism in the Labour Party.
Is your party riven by a schism now, Sir Keir?
No, it isn't. And there is no need for a civil war on this. I think it is perfectly right and proper to unite the party, to stop the factional fighting, but at the same time to make good on my commitment to root out anti-Semitism. And that requires difficult decisions. And yesterday was a difficult decision for the Labour Party, but it was the right decision. And I'm afraid sometimes leadership requires difficult decisions to be taken alongside easier decisions.
It's been reported that Mr Corbyn convened a sort of council of war with some of his colleagues and allies last night. How concerned are you if that report are true?
Well, I don't know about that, but I would say to everybody in the Labour Party there is no need for a war or a split on this. The vast majority of our members and supporters were shocked by the report's findings yesterday and want us to move on in a constructive way, implementing the recommendations. That's what we should be focused on. That is the way to unite the party.
Have any people such as Luciana Berger or Louise Ellman been in touch? Would you like to welcome them back to the Labour fold?
Well, I spoke to Luciana the night before last, and I spoke to Louise Ellman on a number of occasions. I spoke to her, Louise Ellman, on, I think, the day or the day after she left the Labour Party. And I said to her something personal, which I have subsequently said publicly, which is, I will only accept that the Labour Party has adequately dealt with anti-Semitism when people like Louise, other people who've left the party, feel that it's safe to return. So for all the process change, structural change, that's all got to happen. But there's also got to be a cultural change so that those that left, and it'll be their own personal decisions, it's not for me to say, feel that enough has been done for them to safely return to the Labour Party. And that's the test I spoke to Louise about. It's the test I've now set for myself in relation to whether we're succeeding in tackling anti-Semitism.
A word from you on another matter while I've got the benefit of you with me, Sir Keir. There's growing pressure from people who are trying to put their holiday plans together, whether it be for Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever it might be, and we still don't have an idea. There seems to be rather muddled message over whether the rule of six is going to be in place, whether you can have grandma around. I don't expect you to adjudicate on that, but do you not think the government needs to give people an idea what they're going to be able to do through the holiday season?
Yeah, they do. And where's the Prime Minister this week? Because there's growing infection rates, growing admission rates, all sorts of actions being taken in France and possibly in Germany, and the Prime Minister's nowhere to be seen. These are real concerns people have about what's going to happen over Christmas, and people are entitled to an answer to that.